So I would like to talk about peace. And you know, there was a time when my mind was extremely restless. So naturally, as a spiritual seeker, I was trying to find the answer how to be peaceful, how to simply rest, how to be without wanting to do something. And I found all kinds of spiritual methods on how to stop the mind. And you have to know that my mind wasn't just thinking for a little bit, it was an enormous energy in this mind. And it was constantly producing like two or three different voices that are communicating with each other. And that had an effect on the body, and it was just crazy. And I would just like to share how I got out of it. um, there's no way, but there's a pointing, in a way we could say, because when I say there's no way, what I mean is there's no method. At least in my experience, there was no method that was helping me to get out of this restlessness. But of course, I tried all the methods, focus on the breath, and you know, all the different methods, and it didn't work. It was just, for me, it felt like I'm suppressing my thoughts. I got more focused, my mind was more focused. My mind was able to be without thoughts for longer periods of time, but it was an unnatural silence. There was still someone there that is suppressing the thought. That that took effort. So I was not looking for that. I was looking for a way of being without effort. This feeling of being at home. So I was frustrated. At some point, I said, I'm no longer gonna care about meditation. I'm just going to sit down. I don't care about awakening, peace, enlightenment, if I'm going to attain anything. I was just sitting down in this corner. And at this time, I told myself, I'm just gonna think. I'm just gonna think for half an hour. And I will allow the feelings to be as they are. If conflict is gonna appear, let it be there. So there was my first epiphany. I was just sitting there, and thoughts appeared, many thoughts, inner conflict. And I felt extremely uncomfortable because I allowed myself to simply be as I am. But for half an hour, I was not allowed to, look at my phone, interact with people, do things, drink coffee, do stuff like that. And it was extremely uncomfortable. But I felt peace at the end of it. I was able to see clearly how this enormous energy slowed down by itself. I didn't have to do anything, no method. So I kept doing this. Of course, it wasn't a gradual process. But at some point, I noticed that I'm not the thinker. So I was just there, and I didn't say don't think or do think. I was just there, and the thoughts kept coming. So at some point it just became clear that there is no thinker that is thinking thoughts. It is simply the mind activity that is running by itself. It is the conditioning that is simply doing what it does. So then it became clear there's no I that is doing stuff. There was simply the consciousness that is aware of the conditioning, and the conditioning was doing or repeating what it was doing all the years before. Repeating all the stories, activating all the feelings, that it knows. But from this point on, it was clear that it was just conditioning of this body mind, and I'm the unconditioned consciousness that is aware of it. So it was not by choice, but I had no choice but to identify as an observer, the observer, that is unconditioned and aware of the body mind's conditioning. So I was just sitting down, and the observer was just observing the conditioning of the body mind. So thought appears, something negative, something that's triggering, and the consciousness is not doing something about it. There's no conflict. Because who's the one that's focusing on the breath? It's still the ego trying to focus on the breath, because the ego thinks I'm gonna have an advantage in my life if I don't think so much. So I'm gonna concentrate on the breath. That takes effort. So it's still the ego. But consciousness sees that the one that's trying to change the thought is still the ego. So when you are trying to change the fact that the mind is thinking, then that means you're identified. Because you think that activity is you, and you don't like that you are this way. But it's not you. You are simply observing, as pure consciousness, observing this mind activity. So, and also you see how the body reacts. The body reacts with feelings like when you feel rejected, and you feel pissed and triggered, and the negative stuff, and slowly the whole past is just falling off. Their conditioning will remain to some extent, of course. But when you see that the body mind is thinking and doing all by itself, and the program that is running is observed by something that is not programmed, then the body can relax, and the mind will come to a natural silence, an effortless silence. Then there was just this silence, and it reminded me of being a mountain. Because a mountain is not here for a purpose. It's just here because it is being. That's all. That's the whole purpose of a mountain. It's just there. No past, no future. Just resting in this stillness, which is already the true nature. So it all comes down, awakening is not hard. What's hard about it is to confront what is not you, the conditioned mind, because it feels painful. So that was just my experience. Some people might be successful with, concentrating on the breath. But my way of meditation is no way of meditation. It's just being with this body mind and observing it. Not doing anything to change the body mind, the way of it. The way it's thinking and the feeling, I'm not changing it. It's just pure observation, no conflict, pure allowing. And gradually over time it will become clear that you're not the conditioning. You are the stillness. And that's peace. That's this feeling of warmth that you may have had in childhood. Everything is okay. It's just this, I don't have to pretend to be someone I'm not. It's just, I don't have to believe in things that will save me, because they imply that I'm not safe. But I am. And I'm not saying that this body is safe all the time. I'm talking about the psychological self. The psychological self is talented in pretending that it's not safe, even though it's very comfortable chilling in bed. That's a talent. To act as if something is not right, even though everything's right. Everything, nothing's missing. It's the psychological self. So the trick, to put it in some few simple words, is to confront without conflict whatever will appear when you're just being in silence. And forget everything you've heard about spirituality and Buddhism and Hinduism, and in that moment that does not matter. The mind will cling to an idea of what it means to be enlightened, and then it's looking for it, and it's putting it into the future, and it's not here. And the mind will try to understand what it means to be at peace, and it does not understand peace. But when the mind realizes that it is basically, there is no thinker in the thought that the thinker is thinking, it's just the mind talking to itself and is constantly trying to find out what peace and liberation means. And when it realizes that it has no chance to find this out, then it will just collapse, and then there is real peace. It's just the consciousness, the being, feeling like a mountain, and pure observation of the body, mind, and the world, of all that appears. And when I said that it feels like this warmth that you may know from childhood, do not give that information to your mind, because the mind will look for that and postpone it. Really, just confront the darkness first. Don't be afraid of the darkness. Negative feelings, trauma, past events, that happened, and are still not fully, healed. Confront it every day. Don't try to use a method to get rid of it, just confront it. Become comfortable with it until it is just okay, and you realize in the process of it that it's not you, you are watching the body mind. And when that phase is over, that darkness, then there's just this clarity that you're watching the body mind and its little tendencies to do stupid stuff. But that's okay because it's not you. And then there's peace, naturally, without having to believe in something higher. The goodness will just flow through you, the body mind. And you can give that goodness a name if you want to. But it's just about realizing that the mind will never understand this. The mind is the conditioning. The separate self is the conditioning. And it will never understand peace, feeling at home, feeling satisfied. It will never understand that. So when you are in silence, you're just observing its attempt to become enlightened, its attempt to awaken, the mind's attempt to understand what it means to be free. And you're not artificially trying to create distance. You don't have to be scared of the activity in the mind. You can be very close to it, almost really embrace it. And even if the mind is thinking for 10 minutes, 20 minutes in a row, still embrace it. Don't try to, because what the mind will tell you is that, your consciousness, you should take a step back and you should, observe it from a distance. But that's an artificial distance. The distance is already here when you are just allowing the mind to be active. You don't have, consciousness is untouchable. You cannot do anything, the mind cannot do anything to make consciousness untouchable. You can come as close to the thought as you want, and consciousness is still untouchable. So you can the mind, the artificial I, the artificial mind-made observer, and the thought, they can become one. It's like, there's this full allowance, and there's no conflict. It's just, it's no conflict. But the consciousness that you are, which is always observing, which is always unconditioned, in the position of this consciousness, which is what you are, you will observe the body mind and its programming, conditioning. And slowly the conditioning will become less and less and less. But that's not the goal. The goal is to be. So there's no goal. If you turn it into a goal, you will never, I think you understand. There's no goal. There's no future enlightenment, or only the mind is interested in it.